Hello and a very warm good afternoon. You're watching News 9. I'm Shweta Kothari. We're bringing you stories from the world of business, policy and economy. First up, we'll begin with markets. Markets, Suyash Maheshwari sitting to my left here, ended in red on end of this Monday morning.
Yes, Shweta. So, after opening in the red today, which is Monday morning, bulls made a failed attempt to, pull the markets higher. However, selling bears kept the selling pressure high on the street on Monday, and as a result, Sensex snapped its 11-day winning streak, which is the best run the Sensex has recorded since October of last year. Now, at close on Monday, Sensex was down about 240 points or 0.36% and closed just shy of the 67,600 mark. Nifty was also down by about 0.3% on Monday and closed about 20,133 levels, below the support of 20,150 levels. Now, mid cap and the small cap indices also, Shweta, were trading in the red on Monday. They were down about 0.5% each, and India VIX, which is a volatility index, also saw a decline of about 0.61% and comfortably sits below the 12 mark, which suggests that the volatility has come down after today's trade. Now let's also quickly move on to the gainers and losers, the top performing sectors in Monday's trade. Now, as you can see, Nifty Auto was among the best performer on Monday. The index was up about 0.84%. FMCG pack also rallied, was up about 0.6%. PSU Bank, Shweta, continued its outperformance and in Monday's trade was a top performing sector. The index was up about 3.39%. On the other side, the metal pack, media and realty indices fell 1% on Monday. Now, if we can also move to the gainers and losers, Power Grid Corporation, Shweta, was a top gainer on Monday, and the stock gained about 3%. And the stock has been on a bit of a run up. Last week it surged to a 52-week high after it bagged a transmission project from Rajasthan. It took a bit of a breather on Friday, but we have seen the uptrend resume from Monday onwards. Now, Titan was another stock which has been actually rallying for the past month or so. The stock has rallied about 7% in the past month and has outperformed the Nifty pack. The stock was up about 2.66%. There was no news trigger, but perhaps investors are looking for increased demand for jewelry heading into the festive season and the wedding season. Other gainers were HDFC Life, which was up about 2.43%. Mahindra & Mahindra continued to rally for the second consecutive session. The stock gained about 2.26%. Now, this is on the back of HSBC re-rating the stock from neutral to buy and raising the target price to about 1800. Which implies an upside of about 10% from the current levels. BPCL was also up about 2.26%. It was unfazed by the windfall tax, which was increased on crude oil from 6,700 per ton to 10,000 rupees per ton. Now, among the losers was Hindalco. Hindalco's stock fell about 2.19% today after CEO Nilesh Kaul flagged concerns about labor shortages at the Fast Market Aluminium Conference in Barcelona. HDFC Bank, Adani Post, Dr. Reddy's, Bharti Airtel also were among the blue chip stocks that fell in Monday's trade.
All right, those of course are top gainers and losers. Kranti Bhatini of WealthMills Securities joining us on the show at this point. Kranti, thanks very much for taking time out. I want to first begin by asking you, what are you making of markets this afternoon at the close of Monday's trading session? Are we heading towards a consolidation?
Yes, Shweta, given the kind of the current surge in the market from last couple of days and today's some kind of profit booking, we can expect some kind of consolidation, but we need to also consider today major parts of India is a holiday. Markets are in a holiday mode right now. So ahead of the holiday, we can see some kind of profit booking. But markets are trending at a very strong note. Today is some kind of profit booking, but the fundamental, the setup and the technical setup, whereas and the fundamental setup of the market is currently very strong at this point of time. So nothing to worry. It is just one of the just a kind of profit booking kind of day. And we can see some kind of positive momentum that's getting sustained. We need to see Nifty sustaining above 19,800. That's where we need to see some kind of concern. As long as Nifty is above that level, it's in a positive zone at this point of time. Shweta, just for one observation right now, despite of one hand, we can see some kind of profit booking, some kind of the factor that is called the two-digit factor we can see in the market right now. Investors are becoming frenzy. The stocks which are on 2 digits, they have been flying at this point of time. That's where the cause of concern. Investors need to make the due diligence before taking any such positions. If at all it's a trading positions, no problem. But if the stocks are not supported by fundamentals and if the stocks are keep on flying, that's where one need to be cautious in this market rally.
Now, Kranti, do you expect the subdued movement in the market to continue, especially because the FOMC will come out with its policy, decision on September 20th?
So yes, we witnessed a strong momentum in Indian markets and markets sustaining above 20,000 and giving a phenomenal gains in the past fortnight. What we witnessed. So market can get into a small period of consolidation phase at this point of time. In fact, that's good for the market also. We can't expect the market to keep on rise on a vertical note. What making this market to sustain at this point of time is we need to see the strong gush of liquidity in the market. Markets are supported by both retail, domestic institutional investors, especially the PMS mutual fund and the finally foreign portfolio investors. They have been buying on some days. So what we are seeing is the strong liquidity gush that's making the market to sustain above these levels, and also the positive commentary. The one hand pull off of inflation. These are the factors helping the market to sustain at these levels.
All right. Yes.
Kranti, also I just wanted to get your take on the stock of oil companies. Now, over the weekend we saw that government has hiked the windfall tax on crude oil from 6,700 per ton to about 10,000. Regardless of that, most oil like BPCL was among the top gainers today. ONGC pretty much traded flat throughout the session. So, what sort of an impact will you see for the oil companies?
Two things, Suyash. One hand, we are at $90 per barrel right now. How far this range of the oil price can be sustained at this point of time, we need to see. One is a cause of concern. The other way is whenever the oil comes to these kind of $90 per range, what we can see is some kind of action in the global trade, and also the global momentum is concerned, the global growth is concerned, can get into a positive trend. That gives a neutral moment. One hand the positive, the other hand the negative. It gets neutral. Coming to the windfall tax imposing on these oil marketing companies and refiners, it can impact the earnings in a medium to short term basis. We need to wait and watch how the government are going to take the steps going ahead. We need to wait and watch at this point of time. As per the oil marketing companies are concerned, right now the gush of liquidity, as we discussed about the liquidity that's coming into the market, this is getting channelized into the stocks which looks attractive in the medium to short term. So that's where the money is flowing and making those stocks, despite of some kind of negative news that's coming, that's absorbing the news, is getting absorbed by the liquidity and the attractive valuations of these stocks in the medium to short term.
Okay. How worried are you with Brent crude over $93 a barrel? We were discussing this throughout the week, last week, to understand what imminent impact will be on India. Well, for consumers to begin with, there doesn't look like there's going to be any immediate impact to begin with. But in the long run, over the course of next 5 to 6 months, this is going to play up in a major way, not just for inflation, but also for consumption, for FMCG products, for all in all. A lot is going to get expensive in 5 to 6 months if the upward movement continues.
Yeah, Shweta, you are absolutely correct. If the oil is going to rally. Okay, it's definitely going to have impact on the inflation, and also it's one of the major key raw material for many of the sectors. It can be paint, it can be, in fact, it's used in kind of FMCG products. Even toothpaste also have some kind of extraction that comes from crude oil. So it's a key factor for India. It's a linchpin for economy like India. So we need to wait and watch whether the level is the top up, or it's going to consolidate, or it can take a drift. We have news like the FOMC meeting. So all these things are lined up. But for a longer term basis, I'm quite bearish with respect to the crude oil is concerned. But in a medium to short term, the demand and supply places always the key role. I don't think so. Oil going above $100. Yeah, it's not a issue at this point of time. I'm going to see some kind of oil taking a U-turn from this level, or getting into a long consolidation zone, Shweta.
Okay.
But given the point, as you rightly mentioned, if the oil goes above from this level, it's going to be a key cause of concern for the markets going ahead. Definitely.
Okay,
We can't ignore the oil.
Right.
For a country.
Interesting. You said you don't see it touching $100 a barrel. We had other experts on the show last week who said it will touch $100 anytime now. What is the comfort zone for crude, especially for India? Because India is looking to buy crude at 85, in fact 75 to $85 a barrel. Do you see it coming back to that price zone, price range anytime soon?
We can expect the price to come to the level of 85 to 90, that zone we can expect, Shweta. I'm not quite bullish with respect to the oil is concerned at this point of time, which is a good news for the country like India.
Okay. And as far as inventories is concerned and future contracts is concerned, do Indian oil companies have enough so as to not pass on the burden to consumers, people like you and me? Do we have to worry anytime soon for filling up our fuel tanks?
Shweta, we are getting nearer to the election season. I don't think so. The government is going to take tinkering with respect to the oil prices are concerned at this point of time. So, probably it is the market mechanism, and the government is going to try to absorb or throw the burden on the oil marketing company at this point of time. I don't think so. At this point of time, we can't afford the crude oil or the retail oil prices to go up significantly from this point of time.
Okay, so
there were under recoveries. There were under recoveries that can neutralize the oil marketing companies' earnings at this point of time. Of course, it's going to add some pressure on the oil marketing companies in the medium to short term.
Okay, pressure to oil marketing companies, of course, to government's budget as well. So the price is likely to remain stable, I suppose, till May or June of next year, which is when perhaps either this government will continue or this government will go away. But anyhow, elections will be over by then.
Kranti, I also wanted to touch upon the PSU bank rally. Now we have been talking about this time and again. Earlier, like it was on the back of several government reforms such as consolidation of smaller banks into larger banks, the asset quality of the banks improving, the credit growth also going up. Now, what are the fresh triggers? Why are we seeing a 2%, 3%, 4% rally on a day-on-day basis in PSU bank counters?
Shuyash, one thing is what we are witnessing is the credit growth is quite strong. The rural economy is quite strong at this point of time. The monsoon, in fact, it started very well and taken a pause in the month of August, but it's gradually progressing very well across India in the month of September as per the data is concerned. So we can expect the credit growth to continue at the double digit, and with respect to the rural consumption is concerned is going to be quite strong. That's where the PSU banks come into limelight, and also the government's commentary with respect to the resilience with respect to the management quality is concerned. There is a wide gap in the valuation gap between the private sector banks and public sector banks on a longer term basis. So the gap is trying to get narrowed at this point of time with the strength of the economy, and also the commentary that's coming from the various agencies from the government. So we can see some kind of buying interest is getting emerged from retail investors also with respect to the public sector undertakings are concerned, public sector banks are concerned, undertakings especially public sector banks are concerned in the medium to short term.
Now, Kranti, any stocks that are looking attractive to you in the PSU bank basket? Because I was just looking at the returns, you know, in India Overseas Bank in FY24 has surged about 180%. Bank of Maharashtra has surged about 186%. Punjab and Sindh Bank has almost tripled. Punjab National Bank has almost doubled. So most of these stocks have turned, it seems like multi-baggers in just FY24. Any stock that is looking attractive to you at this point in time?
So as you might have missed, UCO Bank has also doubled. Okay,
Yeah.
so there is a broad rally in the PSU stocks, PSU banks are concerned. But our focus at WealthMills Securities, we are continuously focused on the large cap banks like Canara Bank and Bank of Baroda at this point of time. Of course, there is some kind of buying interest is emerging at the bottom of the pyramid. As I mentioned, there is a two-digit factories playing in the market. The stocks which are at the 2 digits, they have been flying at this point of time. So as Warren Buffett always rightly says, in the shorter term, markets are a voting machine. In the longer term, they are the weighing machines. So the earnings are ultimately going to determine the prices, because always stock prices in a longer term, they always weigh the strength of the economy, and always stock prices are slave to the earnings.
Okay. All right. You know, let's also quickly move on to a major IPO that we are tracking that is going to be coming up soon by the way of JSW Infrastructure. Suyash, take us through what's going to be on offer.
Yes, Shweta. So the 2,800 crore public issue from the JSW group is all set to come out on September 29th. Now the price band for the issue has been set at 113 to 119 per equity share. Now, if you talk about the issue itself, Shweta, it will be a complete fresh issue. There will be no offer for sale. So basically, promoters are not selling any of their stake. New shares will be only issued. Now, also this will be JSW's first IPO in nearly 13 years. The last time they came out with an IPO was back in 2010 when they, carved out their energy business, also known as JSW Energy. Now, JSW Infra will use the proceeds from the fresh issue to repay debt of about 880 crore, and the remaining amount will go into funding its capex requirement. Now, also, if we can, these are the important timelines. I'll just quickly run you through it, Shweta. So the IPO opens on September 25th. It closes on September 27th. The basis of allotment, which is the date, on which who gets how many shares will be finalized. So that will be on October 3rd. A day after that, refunds will to the shareholders who are not allotted shares in the allotment process will get the refund on October 4th. The shares will be credited to the demat account of the shareholders on October 5th, and the likely or the tentative listing date for JSW Infra is October 6th. Now, if we can also quickly look at the financials of JSW Infra. Now, as you can see, assets have improved nearly like almost 30% from FY20 when it stood at about 7,191 crores to FY23 to the end of FY23 when they were about 9,450 crores. Now, revenue, Shweta, has jumped nearly 2.5 times from FY20 to FY23. In FY20, it was about 1,237 crores. As of FY23, it was 3,372 crores. Profit after tax has increased by a whopping 386% from 196.53 crores at the end of FY20 to about 749.5 crores. The company's net worth, Shweta, which is also the market capitalization of the company, has expanded by 60% in the same time period from 2,488 crore to 3,934 crore. Now, Kranti, this is the first offering from JSW Group in nearly 13 years. What's your opinion on the IPO?
Yes, Suyash, you rightly mentioned that, and given the points towards the JSW Infra is concerned. And last 6 months, we have not seen any kind of significant fundraising. All by and large, mid and small cap space has dominated the IPO market. And we have one marquee name like TVS in the last month, that also from a strong group. Now the turn is for JSW Infra, which have a strong pedigree, and the company and the group which is more focused with respect to the infrastructure, with respect to the metal sector is concerned, the strong players. Now coming to at this point of time, the pricing is good and also backed by strong marquee names at this point of time. And there is a buying interest with respect to JSW Group is concerned, because the group as a conglomerate, it performed very well in the past 10 years. And this is one of the group to observe in the next coming decade also, how it's going to pan out. They have been playing the cards consistently very well at this point of time. Investors with a longer term horizon, definitely they can subscribe for this IPO. The good point for this IPO is they're launching at a right time. When the story is just emerging, when the capex cycle is emerging, when the cycle is at an uptrend, the company is coming for the IPO. That's going to benefit, and that's going to attract the interest of both the institutional investors and the retail is concerned at this point of time. JSW Infra is concerned.
All right, sufficient buying interest around JSW Infra and the IPO that is now in works. Kranti, thank you so much for taking time out. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're traveling today, but thank you for being here once again on the show. But we're going to move on for now. India has its own satellite navigation system, and you can now access it on iPhone. The navigation with Indian constellation, also known as NavIC, NavIC, or whichever way you'd like to call it, is a satellite navigation system which is similar to GPS or the global positioning system developed by the US. India's own NavIC is developed by ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization. The Indian government is now considering it making mandatory for smartphones that are launched in the country. Now, according to Minister of State for Electronics and IT, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, all 5G phones should now support NavIC by 1st of January 2025 and all the other smartphones by December of 2025. The government is planning to mandate chips embedded with NavIC for automotive industry. Now, Accord Software System, a local startup, has incorporated NavIC in the design of its integrated circuit in a very first attempt to do so by an Indian company. We are going to be speaking to the Chief Executive Officer of NavIC, but let me quickly get my colleague Krishna Kumar to come and join us for that very important story. Krishna, this is huge, and we've been looking at all these developments for the past couple of days now, since Friday to be particular. We were hoping to discuss the story and to discuss none other than Murali Krishna S, Chief Executive Officer of Accord Softwares and Systems, joining us on the show. Murali, thanks very much for taking time out. I think my first question to you would be, how significant is this? We are talking about competing with the likes of Russia, Japan and the US when it comes to our own global positioning systems.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. See, it's a very significant step, mainly because for too long we were depending on the US GPS satellite constellation for our own navigation. And not only for military purpose, even some critical commercial segments require our own satellite constellation system. There are infrastructures which require very precise time, wherein any error in this time can cause a havoc. See, for example, power grid stations, you have things like stock market timings, then base station timings. All these things depend a lot on accuracy of timing that is obtained from GPS. In case, let us say, it gets degraded with intention or without intention, it can create havoc. So having our own navigation system was very critical, and really, I think big thanks to ISRO for launching these satellites and maintaining this infrastructure, so that I think companies like us are ready to, let us say, go to the user and give the benefits of NavIC.
All right, and perhaps my next question that automatically flows, and I think everybody who would be watching us would be thinking, how accurate is NavIC when compared to, let's say, GPS? I read somewhere this afternoon that a GPS will give you approximately 5 meters of accuracy. NavIC will give you 3 meters accuracy. Are we saying that this is a better perhaps technology when it comes to navigating on Indian roads? Are we looking to compete now with GPS and perhaps outdo them?
Especially because Google Maps, you know how we get confused on Indian roads with Google Maps sometimes because it hasn't, charted out our roads all that well. Can NavIC do that better?
Yeah, I think it's a sort of a question which cannot be answered in one sentence, because accuracy of any navigation system depends on several factors. One of them is signal strength. So if you have better signal strength from satellites, you will get better accuracy. Another factor is generally the signals go through what is called as ionosphere. So if the ionosphere is not modeled properly, then you may not get better accuracy. And third thing is number of satellites. If you have more number of satellites in space, you are likely to get a better accuracy. So considering all these 3 things, NavIC, what we have seen is gives better signal strength than GPS right now for whatever the design that has been made. Second thing is, I think we are able to model the ionosphere in a better way than other systems. But the third thing is number of satellites. So if we have more number of satellites around India, then we are likely to get much better accuracy than a GPS. So I will not say that it is much better than GPS, but it is likely to give better than GPS when full constellation is in place. So if you have 11 or 7 or 11 satellites that ISRO is planning, when we have those many number of satellites, you are likely to get much better accuracy than GPS.
Right, from what I understand, I think, Shweta, ISRO is planning to up the number of satellites for NavIC from 7 to 12, if I'm not mistaken. Another thing, I'd like to remind viewers at this stage is what happened during the Kargil war when the Indian government wanted to use GPS, in that, all-important battle that was unfolding, and we weren't given access at that stage. So we lost strategic advantage because of a particular piece of technology not offered to us. So it was about time that we developed our own, for our own strategic interests and our own security interests, to have our own global positioning systems. So, one is, of course, competing it at it as a product in economic terms, but also there is strategic and security importance to this, to us having our own GPS.
Absolutely. To us having our own indigenously developed positioning system. Murali, I understand that there's going to be multi-usage to this. One is going to be commercial, which is for the rest of us, the commoners, and one is going to be strategic, which is for the government, perhaps for more discrete purposes. Is that the only utilization? What is the bandwidth we're talking about as far as utilization of NavIC is concerned?
Yeah, I think when you look at the commercial space itself, I think the market is huge. I think nowadays everyone depends on GPS. And as I was mentioning, I think when we look at critical infrastructure, even though it's a commercial operation, need of a, let us say, self-reliant navigation system was a must. I think with NavIC, it has been fulfilled. And as Krishna was saying, I think in case of military systems, it's a must to have our own navigation system because commercial systems are likely to be mimicked by some enemy. So it is very much required that we have military code being transmitted for our military systems. And this gives a very secure positioning to our defense personalities.
Okay.
Right. Well, another thing, Shweta, while we're discussing this, is also I wanted to remind viewers that the talk of NavIC essentially, began with the launch of, interestingly, the iPhone 15.
That is
correct. Because the iPhone 15s, the latest version of iPhone, the latest generation of iPhones have arrived with NavIC, as an option for you. So that's when the talk began, and then soon enough, you saw, Rajesh Chandrasekhar, Minister of State for IT, also chipping in with talk of how it needs to be made compulsory, and then officially recently came the final confirmation that it will be made compulsory for all phones by December 2025, and before that by January 2025 for all 5G phones that are going to be manufactured. So interestingly, it's the launch of iPhones that began talk of NavIC, which has now taken us to another plane of understanding what having our own global positioning system is.
Absolutely.
But what is interesting is that we are now competing with US, Russia,
Japan,
the European Union, and Japan and China. So we have 5 competitors, and only Japan's GPS or Japan's global positioning system has lesser number of satellites as compared to us. Everybody else has more satellites than don't they?
Absolutely, and that brings me to all the more important question, Murali. If it's not as accurate and it's not as widely popular as a GPS would be, does it make economic sense to compel smartphone makers to have NavIC pre-installed? Does this mean that the cost of smartphones is likely to go up? What is going to be the immediate repercussion of this? Is this going to be, the cost remains same? There is nothing to lose, nothing to gain, perhaps an Indian system at no added cost? Or does this mean the cost of making smartphones now go up?
Yeah, one thing that I want to address is no, NavIC will be as accurate as GPS. So I don't think there will be any degradation in the accuracy of NavIC when we have full constellation in place. The second question is, for historical reasons, we got, in the sense, ISRO got two frequency bands for operating NavIC. One at L5 frequency, another one at S frequency. See, traditionally, GPS uses L1 frequency, which is at 1.5 gigahertz. So most of the smartphones were built around this 1.5 gigahertz frequency. Now, if somebody has to change the frequency to 1.1, let us say, gigahertz, which is L5 frequency, they had to invest a little bit on hardware. So in a way, yes, it used to add a little bit of cost to the smartphone when they incorporated NavIC. But the good news is ISRO, the recent satellite that they are launching, it incorporates signal in L1 band, which is at 1.5 gigahertz, which is at the same frequency as GPS. So what is going to happen is, in future, when more and more number of ISRO satellites will have L1 frequency, they need not add any additional hardware in a smartphone to make it NavIC compatible. So there is no additional cost as far as NavIC is concerned when we go into future.
Right. Mr. Murali Krishna, also, correct me if I'm wrong, Qualcomm and MediaTek chips already have been coming with NavIC, with NavIC compatibility already, aren't they? So the transition should not be all that difficult.
Yeah, sure, yeah, definitely. I think a lot of modem manufacturers will have, let us say, GPS incorporated in their modem. And the latest modems from many of these big players like Qualcomm and others have NavIC built in. So that way, I think the transition has already been made. And I assume that over the years, with L1 in NavIC satellites, I think it is much more smoother.
All right, much more smoother, perhaps even as competitive as GPS. Murali is saying once all satellites are going to be in place, there's not going to be any added cost to it, and it's going to be maybe more accurate than GPS. We'll have to wait and watch for that. Time will tell. But Murali, thanks so much for joining in. Thank you for sharing your insights, and all the very best. I see you have a huge contract to oblige at this point. All the very best for what's to come. We'll touch base once again.
And congratulations again.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. Yeah, bye.
All right, shifting focus now. A pilot failing an alcohol test is a cause of concern, but 33 failing the test in 6 months, that is colossal. And it reflects very poorly on the entire system. In the first half of this year, 33 pilots and 97 cabin crew members failed their compulsory alcohol test. These tests are conducted either before or after flights. This according to data from DGCA, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation. Now, in contrast, in the first half of 2022, the aviation regulator recorded 14 pilots and 54 cabin crew members being identified as intoxicated while on duty. This as per a report which has been filed by Business Standard. Now, as per DGCA rules, remember, pilots and cabin crew members undergo pre-flight breath analyzer tests. For pilots and cabin crew members operating flights from abroad to India, they have to undergo post-flight tests as well. These tests are conducted by airlines' doctors, and positive reports are then shared with DGCA. What is leading to the safety concern? Why is it happening on such a large scale? Let's talk about that. Joining us is Amit Singh, Captain Amit Singh, founder of Safety Matters Foundation. Captain Singh, thanks very much for taking time out. I want to first begin by asking you, how severe is the problem? 33 failing tests in first half of the year. I think that's significant to begin with on a very large scale.
That's a very serious indicator that something is wrong in the system. What is causing these personnel, be it pilots, cabin crew or engineers, to come with a positive level of alcohol in the blood? So the range may vary, the degree may vary, but still the requirement by the regulator is 0.00% alcohol in the breath. And there should not be any trace of alcohol in the blood. So we need to do a root cause analysis. Over the past few years, we have come up with so many numbers per year, so many pilots, engineers, cabin crew have tested positive, but nobody has gone to the root cause. What is causing this sudden rise? And now we have seen that the regulator has come up with regulations for random drug tests. And there are certain cases of drug being found positive, whereas we don't have the infrastructure to determine which one the samples are sent abroad, but still it is a concern. So we should start from the beginning, which is the society where we come from. So we do not come to the workplace and drink. It is someone who drinks at home or in the society and then turns up for work. So what is causing people to do so? So that is basically a cultural issue which has to be addressed, and the root cause has to be found out. Even abroad, there have been cases, but very less as compared to India, because the consequences are very severe. In Singapore or the US, it is a straight away jail term. So in India, the consequences are basically, first time you're caught, your license is suspended for 3 months. Second time, 1 year. Third time, cancellation of a license. So you have that opportunity. And maybe it is the psychology of a person to take risk when the consequences are not so grave. So it is a multi-pronged strategy which is required.
Captain Singh, sorry to interject there, but are you suggesting that we don't have enough penalties in place? Is that the reason why it's happening? And it's happening on perhaps a larger scale in India, 14 in last year, first half of last year, 33 in the first half of this year. Is it because the penalties are not as high as they are in the Western nations?
That is one of the solutions. So what I'm trying to put across is that there has to be a multi-pronged strategy. First is to find out the reason why is it happening. Second is education, which is very important for the foundation. Third is identify people who are prone to this and put them into rehab and check, keep a track on them. Then employment consequences, and then you have to take legal action. So there are multiple steps which have to be followed. Whereas in India, we have only one step, which is license cancellation. There is a process of rehabilitation, but no analysis has been done. So unless you try to do an analysis, we won't get to the root cause. We will see only the symptoms, and the symptoms cannot be addressed by only a rule. So, for example, if a person is not wearing a seat belt, there are consequences. And it has to be, when the seat belt regulation came in, nobody wanted to wear one. But then there were campaigns run, education done. We haven't seen the regulator carrying out any sort of promotion, safety promotion, which, as a matter of fact, even the ICAO has said that we have, in the audit, it was found unsatisfactory that the regulator's safety promotion was found insufficient.
Okay.
Because
Captain
even
Singh,
if you look
I
at...
have a bit of an objection to the anomaly of not wearing seat belt. It's like saying your main driver is drunk and they should be told not to be drunk every time they take on to the driving seat. it is but understood that you are responsible not just for your life, but also the life of passengers when you are flying and taking an aircraft along with you, specifically as a pilot, least of all when you are on an Indian road and perhaps would be hitting not just yourself, but could be harming lives and endangering people around you. There is all the more added responsibility. I fail to understand, are we of the suggestion that there is not enough understanding within the pilots of what could happen if you are drunk and take to your duty? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, people are aware. What I'm saying is that education. I was trying to compare when the seat belts initially came on, people didn't want to wear them, but there has to be multi-pronged strategy, which means fines have to be there, but at the same time you have to be educated. It is a habit formation. You have to form a habit. You have to be educated. You have to be shown the consequences. So there is a book called Habits by Charles Duhigg, which talks about there are certain stages. There is a cue. Why do people hit the bottle or hit alcohol, take alcohol? Is it because of fatigue? Is it because of stress? Is it because of social problems? So there are a number of reasons. So what is that which can be replaced by alcohol? So the airlines have to work towards that, and so has to the person himself has to work. So airline has to recruit such people who follow the rules. There is a detailed psychoanalysis and different tests conducted, battery of tests conducted before recruitment. So we can easily find out who all are prone to such habits and addictions. So what I'm trying to say is that the stick is the end of it. Before that, there are multiple steps which we have not followed. So this is where we reach the numbers are increasing because we are not controlling it at the beginning or the foundation. And there is no education on part of it. Even the unruly passengers, we have seen alcohol affects that, but there is no promotion. You haven't seen any campaign at any airport. What are the consequences of being unruly in flight, and what is going to happen? We say that FIR will be filed, but there is no sort of promotion or literature or videos going around. So the society cannot change overnight. Pilots have to be responsible, that everybody knows, and what the consequences are. But if somebody has an issue in addiction or controlling, so that has to be identified by the airline or the society. So it is easy to say that what is right, what is wrong, but a line has to be drawn, and the person has to be shown the consequences.
Okay, so a better psychometric analysis, Krishna, I think that is what Captain Amit is referring to. Makes sense to have a better psychometric analysis of somebody who is responsible not just for their life of maybe 300, 400 more people every time they take to air, and perhaps understand if they're fit to be taking that seat or not taking that seat. Perhaps have a recruitment process that is more robust, come to think of it.
And also, whatever tests you're doing, do it on a regular basis. It's not like, when you do the test when you hire a pilot and then it's over. These tests have to be periodical and repeated over a period of time, so that to ensure the fact that the standards never fall below. Even if you want to do the psychometric test, a person has to be able to meet the standard of the psychometric test on a consistent basis over a period of time. That's when you know when somebody is being up to the job and bringing their commitment, the kind of commitment that's needed when so many people's lives depend upon you doing your job well. So the only thoughts I can harbor at this stage is that any measure that you're bringing in has to be over a period of time. And in the meanwhile, I have a question to ask Captain Amit Singh as well. Captain Amit Singh, if you take the rules for pilots in, say, the European Union and the US, for example, there is an 8-hour gap between flights for consumption of alcohol, whereas for Indians it's 12 hours. And then of course the alcohol content as well. For the US it's 0.02% is allowed, whereas in India it's zero, absolute zero. And even in Europe it's 0.04%. Talk to us from the rules in India versus the world's perspective. Do you think we're getting it right, and also from our culture's perspective it makes more sense to have these zero tolerance rules?
Well, the point too is because there is certain amount of alcohol in the system generated naturally. It is so 0 is there, but there are certain cases wherein depending on what you have, the type of meals that you have had or something, the body also generates some amount of content. So that is why even for the drivers, so they've taken the driving limit 0.2. If we compare, it is not the alcohol, but if you're fatigued, if you have been awake for 17 hours or more, a pilot can have an equivalent level of 0.5% alcohol. So while we may have tested 0, but because of fatigue, our responses, our decisions will be same as a person who has had 0.5% alcohol in the blood. We look at the quantity and then we look at the consequences. Singapore, very severe consequences, US, Europe, everywhere. It is straight away, it is a legal action. Police will take action. Right. It is not the regulator. Regulator comes in later because you are knowingly endangering the lives of people. It is not unknowingly that you're doing something. So you're aware of what you're doing and knowingly taking a flight, which means putting so many people's life at risk, is anything happens amounts to manslaughter. So the consequences are severe. That is why the regulations are severe. In India, we need to, again, go back to the drawing board and look at what we are doing in terms of the foundation. So like you said very rightly, the psychometric tests have to be done periodically because the person's perspective and his situation changes over a period of time. It is not that once you do at recruitment, the person will behave the same way throughout his or her career.
Right, Captain, understood. My only concern is, Captain Singh, and I know it's a very difficult job. I understand everything that comes with it, the responsibility of it. I know how high pressure it can be. I mean, we all get a sense of how high pressure a job is to be responsible for those many lives. But is it a mental health issue or is it alcoholism at best? Are you suggesting that because these people are under so much pressure, therefore they are drinking? But then they're also endangering people's life. What is the best course scenario here? To put these people or put all these pilots who test positive to first suspend them and then perhaps put them to rehab? How does it work? A person not understanding the gravity of situation, that they're responsible for these many lives, still going on about their duty as usual. This is not a mechanical job, sir. This requires you to make active decisions at all point of time. You are responsible for those many lives. What is your expectation perhaps of not just these pilots who are found to be guilty, but pilots in general? I know it's a high pressure job, so I keep repeating that, not discounting that there is immense pressure involved.
Immense pressure doesn't mean that you succumb to such activities. Immense pressure means that you have to keep yourself fit for the job in hand. So if you look at it is more of a mental issue because you form a habit which gives you some sort of a pleasure or takes you away from your stress. So we have to analyze it from a mental health issue. Alcohol Anonymous treats people, but it is not that sitting in a group and talking about your story and alcoholism takes away that habit. The habit goes away because there is a cue, be it stress or whatever, there is a cue which triggers it. And towards the end, there is a reward. So by drinking alcohol, you could be getting a reward like de-stressing or taking you away from your worries for some time. But this in between, the routine, which is the alcohol, has to be replaced by some other activity. So it is more of a mental health issue which has to be understood. People do not understand what is happening in the whole process of habit formation. So these things will continue. Like I said, root cause analysis, we have to understand why things are happening, and it has to be looked at from the mental health issue and dealt with it, not like there is something wrong with you, but we have a solution provided you cooperate with us.
Right. The only other thing I want to ask is that let's look at the way the aviation sector, the civil aviation sector in India has been over the last year or so. So many airlines going down, so many airlines supposed to come back but didn't come back. There has been a manpower, the manpower in the industry has gone through so much, from airlines failing and there's no job certainty to now, there's an Air India gets revived, so jobs coming up over there, but then strict notice period policies, getting into trouble for moving airlines. So, the manpower of India's civil aviation sector has been through a lot over the course of the last few years with the kind of turmoil that civil aviation has seen post-COVID, and through COVID. So in that sense, how much of a factor do you think that is when it comes to these instances that are cropping up and increasing?
So that's what I'm saying, that there are little things which combine to become a big issue. So like you spoke about the notice period. Notice period was typically 3 months. It was increased by the regulator to 6 months. For a captain, it then increased to 1 year. So if somebody is not happy in the present circumstance with the airline or the job and wants to quit, no other airline will wait for 1 year for the person to come. They will recruit the person who is readily available. So this 1 year notice period adds to the stress. The amount of flying has gone up. There's a shortage. So that adds to the stress. Then your personal issues may add to the stress. So everything keeps on building up. So this is a collective thing, and the consequences are what you see.
So to start
this
with,
is one of the consequences.
If we can do away with the draconian notice period rule, won't that make stress levels in the civil aviation employment division of India much less to start with? Because I can't imagine, Shweta, can you imagine a job having a 1 year notice period? I mean, if you're unhappy with it, you have to be like, the moment I'm unhappy with it, I have to live with it for at least a year. I'm just saying, that's a bad beginning point for employment in any industry, isn't it, Mr. Mark Martin?
Amit Singh.
Captain Amit Singh.
Yeah, of course, this 1 year draconian rule is causing a lot of stress to pilots, because a lot of people are not happy in the current situation and they cannot get away. So they have to deal with stress on an everyday basis and do the routines which they are not happy with. So that is one of the things. Other thing is that there's another draconian rule, Rule 19 of the aircraft rules by DGCA, that your license can be suspended anytime the regulator feels that there is an issue about public safety. So who defines that is not known. So after every incident, accident, or be it a minor incident, a pilot's license is suspended for any period of time, depending on the regulator's whims and fancies. So there's always a kind of a thing playing in the back of your mind that if I make a mistake, then my license is going to be suspended. Whereas world over, there's something called a just culture rule. Everybody makes errors, so long it is not deliberate. A mistake happens, but so long you confess to the mistake and correct it.
I'm just wondering, what are we referring to as mistake, Mr. Singh? If you could also, Captain Singh.
Not associated with alcohol, but it could be, because everybody makes mistakes. A pilot makes a number of mistakes on every flight.
Right.
But there are certain checklists and other things which are there to mitigate and trap those. So we fly under the fear that there's a CVR being recorded and being monitored. The moment we make a mistake, the regulator will take action. So that stress is also there on every flight we do. We do 4 landings. Every time we land, there is an issue that if the landing goes wrong, the regulator is going to call us, license suspended. License suspended means your monetary, the cash flow reduces by about 80%, 70 to 80%. And then if you have EMIs and all that stuff,
absolutely.
So everything
I'm
starts
sure it's a
building
big
up.
bummer. I'm sure, Captain Singh, it's a big bummer. It's an important issue, perhaps, about aviation safety, the punitive actions that civil aviation body takes against pilots and against airlines. We will discuss it in great details maybe at a later time, but thank you so much for joining us on that very important issue. Thank you for your thoughts. Also on the show is Mark Martin, founder and CEO of Martin Consulting. Martin, thanks very much for taking time out. I think my first question to you would be, explain to us what's the process like when someone's found guilty of drinking on the job, when you're a pilot, when you're a cabin crew member. What happens thereafter?
Hi, Shweta. Thanks for having me on TV9, and great to be with you today. We have to understand that there is no such thing as a drunk pilot. You blow positive in an alcohol test. When you blow positive, at that stage, you're not allowed to enter the aircraft, let alone fly. Now you're given three tries after that. If you consecutively blow positive again and again, then you're sent home. Okay. Now, blowing positive does not imply that you're drunk. I mean, you may have had a drink previous day, but next morning there's still some alcohol in you and you blow positive. In aviation, we have zero tolerance to blowing positive alcohol. Alcohol testing or breathalyzer testing happens before a flight by the airline. In Europe and the US, it's the police authorities who manage the alcohol testing booth at the airport. If you blow positive in the US or in Europe, you're sent to jail for 10 years and your license is taken. Period. End of story. You have no legal defense or nothing left. In India, when you blow positive, you're given a chance to clear yourself. You may have had a piece of cake or something, or you ate something which triggered, or you drank some milk or yogurt or something that created an alcohol residue in your breath. Okay? Our regulations in India are extremely fair. Now, if you had 30 cabin crew and pilots who have blown positive, that means that the three chances they were given before they were allowed to fly, if they blew positive throughout, then that is unforgiving. The book needs to be thrown at them and action should be taken.
All right, Mark Martin, CEO of Martin Consulting. Thanks very much, sir. We would love to have you more on the show, perhaps discuss a little bit more, but we've run out of time on this show. Thank you so much for taking time out. It's an important issue, Krishna. It's an issue of not just pilot safety, not just aircraft safety, but people safety and safety of about 300 to 400 passengers that would be traveling on a plane at any point of time, at any given point of time. What happens to them if the people who are operating that aircraft are perhaps found to be drunk and not in a state to carry that mantle of job and responsibility that has been bestowed on their shoulders? But 33 pilots being found drunk or perhaps inebriated in just first half of this year is a cause of concern. We'll keep bringing you those data points here on Newsline. Thank you very much for watching.